Hey everybody, this is Michael here with Max, and welcome to the Safe Zone. This is our inaugural episode where we're taking a look at the latest build of the Dead Linger, which is 10II, a hot fix for the newest version of this game, which is still in development. Say hello, Max.
Hello.
Alright, so we thought this would be a good game to start off with because it really represents a lot of what we like about this survival game genre. You know, you got these big procedurally generated sandbox worlds with tons of loot and zombies and places to explore. However, we should probably start out by saying that this is a game in very early development, so you're going to see a lot of warts and a lot of rough edges that we'll kind of point out and discuss as we go through here, but it's a good starting point, I think, to kind of kick things off. So, as you can see, we found this lovely area with all these cool buildings and stuff to go ransack for hot loot. So let's get started doing that and see what kind of trouble we can get into.
Ah, yes. The jog through the wonderful wasteland.
Yes, we've managed to come to this place at just about dusk, so it should be interesting to see what kind of zombie action we get here as night approaches. And this should also give us an opportunity to show you some of the game in different lighting scenarios and using the flashlights and such. So actually, day passes in an accelerated form in this game. It's basically 7,200 ticks. Oh, look, a zombie. Now, I might be tempted to kill this zombie with this baseball bat. Oh, wait. Did I hit him? Yeah. One thing we should point out about this game in its current state is that melee is a little bit broken. So if I actually try to hit this zombie with this baseball bat, not working out too well. So I'm going to back off because I'm hopeful that Max actually has a weapon of some kind.
Yeah, the good thing about this game is guns have been improved with this latest patch.
Help!
Even though 2 bullets to the head apparently... Okay, there we go.
Yeah, so the hitboxing on the zombie heads seems to be a little sketchy, even with even with the bullets. I know I've definitely shot a few multiple times in the head before they go down, which is kind of a bummer. But I need to find myself a gun because even though I was provided this super swank backpack here by Max, I actually only have this broken baseball bat to use at the moment, which is kind of not optimal. So let's see if I can find myself a weapon in this house.
That is a very nice backpack I found you. It was in one of those log cabins.
Yeah, log cabins are definitely very much akin to like red roof barns in DayZ, where you know if you're just getting started with a new character and you can find one of those out in the woods, you're gonna get some pretty sweet loot to get started with. Usually find a gun, some ammo, backpack, maybe a clothing item or two. They're pretty nice. Definitely worth keeping an eye out for. So one thing about this game, which I should probably point out for people who aren't at all familiar with it, that's kind of interesting, is the mechanic they use for opening and closing doors. You actually like walk up to a door and you'll get this hand icon, and then you hold the C key and move your mouse forward and backward to actually open the door in kind of a variable analog sort of way. So like if you want to actually peek out a door instead of just flinging it open like you would in most games, you can actually do that. The downside to it is it takes a little while to get used to and can sometimes be a little cumbersome when you're trying to do it in a hurry. But I have to say I like that realistic kind of aspect to it. It's something that you would think wouldn't make as big of a difference as it does, but just being able to like peek through a doorway I think is kind of a neat idea. And I can't say I've ever really seen that in a game before this.
Yeah, not even like DayZ at its current state right now has that.
Yep. Yeah, there's definitely some good ideas in this game, I would say, that are pretty unique to it, based on other comparisons to other sandbox survival games that I've played. I hear some Zeds outside, so I'm going to come back in the house here where there aren't zombies. Did you check upstairs yet?
I have not.
Alright, let's go do that. Also do a little flashlight action so you can get an idea of what this is like. It's very Half-Life-like in the sense that the longer you run the flashlight, the weaker it gets. And after you've been running it for a while, it'll just stop, and you have to leave it off for a while for it to recharge. So you kind of want to use it sparingly to a certain extent, but it lasts for a pretty long time before you have to shut it off, which is good. So one other thing about the game that's a little bit annoying right now is sometimes it's kind of hard to tell what you're looking at exactly until you pick it up. Like there's no actual indication of what items are until you actually put them into your inventory. But then once you're holding it, you can actually get like a little pop-up that will show you what it actually is that you're carrying. And you can see here, I've got this football helmet, which I can now put on as armor. The problem with that being that other players can't actually see your cool items that you're wearing. So like Max had a cowboy hat the other day, and now I'm wearing this football helmet, but we can't actually see each other's gear at the moment. Like even weapons aren't visible between players, which is a bit unfortunate.
Yeah, they haven't yet optimized any of that.
Yeah, so what do we have here? We have some ammo. I haven't seen the box of 308 ammo yet, so that's a new one on me. Now if I could just find something to shoot it with. Uh-oh. Looks like we just ran into a bug.
Uh,
Was I killed by that door? I don't think so.
you must have been.
That's pretty crazy. I've never seen that bug before.
The killer door.
Uh-oh. Oh. My game's kind of locked up here. I'm having trouble moving. That's unfortunate.
This is not optimal.
I think what I may do is stop the recording until we can get this resolved, and then we'll kind of try to pick it up from there. But
Yeah.
we'll be back in a minute. Okay, we're back. Sorry, a little technical difficulty there, but pre-alpha software, you know how it is, folks. So we've managed to get back together in the same house that we were in. It's a different time of day because I had to restart the server, but that's cool. That just lets you see things in a different light, as it were. Let's see, any more fat loots in this house? Or is it looks pretty barren?
Yeah, I think we've bled it dry. Just about.
Right on. Okay, well, we've got plenty of other buildings to check out in this area, so why don't you take point and lead us to salvation?
Will do. Yeah, I have to say, the residential areas, they don't usually provide a lot. They'll provide enough. But, I mean, I think weaponry-wise, the only thing that you can really get out of them is, like, if you're lucky, a handgun. But most of the time you'll find, like, melee weapons and food.
I've definitely found a couple rifles in these suburban houses, but they're definitely few and far between.
Yeah, it's like if you check the two stories are definitely the ones you want to check out. Those are the ones with usually they have the rifles in them, but like the one stories.
Yeah. So, one thing I should probably point out for those of you watching the video and wondering why my frame rate is dipping so badly here, when I'm not running fraps, when I'm not actually capturing video on this, it's definitely a lot smoother. There are also times when the game will load kind of either small loads as you're moving through an area or big loads as you move from one kind of geographical region to another, and that's just kind of the way that it is. It's hard to tell how much of this right now is fraps and how much of it is the game, but I'd say like probably it's a combination of the two at the moment. Um, it definitely does play a lot more smoothly when you're not recording it, but at the same time, there are still pauses, some occasional and some pretty long, as you move from one area to another. So that's something to keep in mind if you're thinking about picking this up.
Yeah, the game will definitely at points have it has to like refresh itself. Instead, it takes a minute, and then usually when it pops you back in, you have to wait till the grass and other textures to actually load back into the game.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely some performance implications here. Let me just check something real quick. Yeah, the other problem that we're having is I'm actually not able to password protect the server at the moment that we're playing on because basically it's an on or off kind of thing right now. They're supposed to be adding passwording to the servers in the next version of the game, but what I find is that as people are joining the server and leaving the server, that also tends to cause like lag and frame rate issues, which I think are only being amplified because Fraps is running. But then once things kind of settle down again, like they have here, you see it gets a lot smoother again. But that's just the kind of people coming and going, and I guess the network code associated with that having an impact on things.
Yeah, it's almost like the longer the game is running, kind of the slowly like worse it gets
Yeah,
performance-wise.
I definitely think there might be like some memory leaks or something, not to get too technical, but as a programmer, that's how I tend to think of things like that. Um, there might be a case where, like you said, the longer that it runs, the worse the performance gets. It seems to have smoothed out at least reasonably, though, at this point. So hopefully we'll get lucky and we can go check out some more buildings and maybe find me a gun and have a few zombie encounters. But I guess this is probably as good a time as any to just talk in general about like kind of where this game fits in like the grand scheme of like zombie survival sandbox type games. Like I know for me personally, this is a game that I'm really looking forward to it getting to a point where it's feature complete and optimized and that sort of thing, because on a lot of levels this game really speaks to me. Like the randomly generated worlds, the whole idea of cooperative zombie apocalypse survival simulator, I think, is a really great one. It's certainly not the only game out there doing that sort of thing, but especially when you look at the roadmap of features and things they're looking to implement in this game long term, I think they've got some really great ideas and some really ambitious plans for it.
Oh yeah, this game I definitely think has a lot of potential, especially for being kind of switching over to a brand new engine since they're switching over to the Unity engine. That's why it's not quite as optimized as it used to be, them making that transition. But I think for right now, they have a great base. It's really kind of heavy on the realistic side with opening doors and things like that. And
Hmm.
yeah, I think as long as they keep building on it and fixing the small glitches and bugs that they currently have, that this will definitely be like a DayZ contender.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And speaking on the realism for a minute, I think that's one of the things that most appeals to me about this game, say versus some other games in this genre, is I definitely tend to lean more towards favoring the realism, like having to worry about finding food and water, or having to worry about how well you aim your weapon, or how much you're carrying and stuff like that. Like I think those little details contribute to making a more immersive, more engaging experience. Like sometimes it's good to just have kind of arcadey or like cartoony kind of presentation, but I do definitely appreciate elements of realism, and I especially appreciate a game that can have realistic elements while still being a fun experience, because that's a really difficult line to walk, and I think this game is shaping up to walk that line in a very compelling way.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the inventory system. It's really kind of simplified in the way that it's not really by weight, it's by like these almost like cubic squares that you have in your inventory, and items kind of take up so many depending on what kind of item you're trying to store.
Yeah, I just showed a few seconds of the backpack there so folks could see what you were talking about.
Nice.
So this office building looks pretty like something we should investigate, although I did get killed in one of these earlier when I was discovering that the baseball bat wasn't super effective. But, I mean, I feel like we're kind of obligated to look in here, right?
Oh yeah, it looked tantalizing.
Yes, I concur.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the more high traffic areas. Seems like the zombies spawn in here.
Yeah, I feel like much like DayZ, this is a game where when you get around buildings, the zombies seem to become more prevalent. Um, they seem to definitely key off of structures. So if you're looking for action, if you're kind of bored of wandering the wilderness or fields or whatever, and you wanna see some zombie action, like definitely go find yourself some buildings. They're clustered together.
Yeah, you'll definitely get a rush of activity.
Although I think this is as good a time as any to bring up the fact that in the game's current state, I don't think zombies really represent that much of a threat. I mean, they're not particularly fast. They're not particularly intelligent in the way that they, maneuver. Although I think their pathfinding is fine. There's their individual skill or threat is not high enough, and their numbers are not great enough for them to really pose much of a genuine threat to the player unless they really catch you off guard. If there were a lot more of them, or the individual zombies were tougher or more difficult to kill, I think it would be a different story. But kind of as things stand, they're just more of a nuisance than anything.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree that their pathfinding is great because I mean, all those times when we were in those houses that they would just be like breaking through windows to get in at you.
Oh yeah, like sometimes they'll literally like jump through a window or something, which is definitely cool. Although sometimes that leads to funny glitches, right, where like the zombie will kind of jump up into the air and then get stuck in the air and go floating through the air for a while before it figures out that it's supposed to be on the ground.
Yeah, trying to collide with the ground, like to stand up and start shuffling toward you.
Yeah, but I mean, it's so hard to assess stuff like that because this is such an early game. It's such an early build in development, and you have to figure that the folks who are making this game are well aware of the places where it's rough, and needs work. So it's definitely it's worth pointing out, and it's worth showing the game in its current state so that people who are maybe considering getting in on this early access stuff have a reasonable expectation of what to expect. But, by the same token, like, we're certainly not reviewing this game, and this is a game we'll definitely be looking at periodically as it evolves and as new versions come out and new features become available in it. So, it's this is kind of just a good snapshot of where the game is at the moment, I would say.
Yeah, it's still definitely pre-alpha, but I think with that server switch, it should definitely get a lot better. The engine switch to Unity should make the game a lot better.
Yeah. And even just since the last couple of builds that we saw, like I think multiplayer has become a real viable possibility in a way that it just wasn't before. I mean, because like you could find each other, but like you couldn't even see the other person animate when they were walking, or you couldn't see what direction they were facing, in previous builds, And, sure, it would be nice to be able to see what kind of gear the other person's wearing or what kind of weapon they're carrying. But even just little details like orientation and animating their movement, like, go a long way toward making it a more compelling experience to sit down and try to play this with somebody.
Yeah, I have to say, within a very short time, I think they've done quite well with the improvements that they've made.
Cool. Well, I think this is probably enough of this game to show for now, and we can definitely, you know, see what kind of feedback we get on this episode or what other kind of aspects of the gameplay people might want to see. I know there's like some barricading functionality and some basic crafting and stuff like that that are either in the game now or scheduled to be implemented soon. So, if you folks have ideas about what you'd like to see us cover in future episodes that feature this game, definitely let us know in the comments and whatnot. We'll have links to everything in the description, how to best get in contact with the show and whatnot. But I think for now, that's a pretty good way to wrap this up, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it was kind of a bummer that there was nothing in the office building.
Yeah, the loot distribution definitely seems to be sketchy, but as Max said earlier, pro tip, go find yourself a cabin in the woods because you'll get mad loot out of that.
Yeah, hey, a 22 rifle is not the worst thing in this game.
Yeah, definitely not, especially with that scope. The scope's not bad at all.
The scope is dope.